Hi, does your car haunt you with various electrical issues? Here at the Swedish Institute of Crap Technology, we have developed practices to prevent these things from happening to you. What else are we gonna do here? I don't even know. The Swedes have a long history of producing crap. Here at the Swedish Institute of Crap Technology, we have developed methods to help mitigate any of these issues and keep your car running in tip-top condition. Call or email us today at www.swedishinstituteofcraptechnology.com. Have a good day. Oh, we have a pretty short video today, I think. Let's see how this works out. Working at home today. It's cold. Just had a cold front come through. So I'm going to stay home. I'm in my sweats. And we are working on a Volvo S60 2006 variant, 2.5 turbo. And it's got some very weird drivability issues, a couple little symptoms. And I'm going to show you what we found on this thing. I think a lot of these cars, unfortunately, get sent to the scrapper over a little tiny issue. That is weak solder joints. Now, looking on the forums, these cars, especially the 0506, did have an issue with water getting into one of the modules. Of course, our Swede friends, mimicking the Germans, they've got about 18 different modules in these things. But there's one central processor module, whatever you want to call it, CEM, Central Electronic Module. It's mounted right down here, and that was a known issue. You get this cover off, and the module is right down in there, and water will get into the connectors, corrode them all up, and then you'll have all these issues. This car did not have that issue, which I was surprised to find. The issue lies within the module itself, which was even more interesting. I found no information about the module itself going bad, but we'll get that apart and I'll show you what we found. Not a bad car. These were pretty sweet when they were newer, I think. Of course, getting up there in age now. The symptoms that it had, what were slightly different, was the transmission would go into limp mode. It would, going down the interstate, it would bang in the third gear. You'd be cruising along in overdrive, fifth gear, lock up, whatever it was, and then it would just bang right into third gear with no warning. Also, driving around the streets, that's when you would learn that it was going into limp mode, and it would lock itself in third gear. Coming from stop, third gear, you'd have to step on the throttle a lot to get her going. Only other issue that we could identify was the small information cluster module here. It's just a little tiny information center. That was not working, and it was going berserk. Those were the only real big issues that this car had. Other than that, it did okay, running and driving all right. When it would go into limp mode, it also had two codes, P0863, that's for a traction control module communications circuit, CAN bus issue. Code 512B, malfunction indicator lamp communication. So both are, I believe, CAN bus issues. CAN bus is a universal communication system that allows all of the modules in the vehicle to talk to each other. It's pretty simple layout. It's practically 2, maybe 3 wires. All this data runs in between the modules and allows them to communicate. They were not communicating.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
This goes back years in the making for me. Back when I was a kid, you know, I was a bit of a science and astronomy junkie. I remember when the Hubble telescope was put up. That was a pretty big deal. That was really cool. I was excited to see how that was going to turn out. One of the early issues that the telescope had, an issue with an electronic module, and the issue they found was that it had cracked solder joints on this module. Now, of course, I was just a kid. I didn't know what a cracked solder joint was. I didn't know what a module was, but that stuck with me. Something so sophisticated could be taken out, serviced by a solder joint. Well, as my career progressed, it was something that I kept in my back pocket. I remember the first instance that I came across such an issue I think it was on a heater, on a facility, you know, a building, a commercial type of heater. And it was controlled by a module, a brain module, whatever you will. And it had cracked solder joints. I was able to take apart the module, inspect it, found the bad joints, soldered them up, fixed it. Everything was great. And in fact, that module is still working today. Anyway, that's just where I learned that from, was simply following the Hubble telescope. These issues still apply today. I've probably done 20 or 30 different repairs now in my career by simply fixing a bad solder joint. Here's our module. This is the Central Electronic Module CEM for Volvo. That's one heck of a unit there. Kind of a pain in the butt to get out, but once you figure it out, it's not so bad. And the biggest issue anyone is going to face is figuring out how to get these damn things taken apart. Any one I've ever been through, it doesn't matter what it was on, is figuring out how to get the housing apart without busting things up. Patience, you know, there's no manual on how to do this. I mean, especially nowadays, all you do is remove and replace, buy a new unit, you know. Well, I don't work that way. I go into my modules. I have about 80 screwdrivers for removing all of the tabs without breaking them. So you have successfully disassembled your module. You probably only broke about half of the securing tabs, which is completely fine. That's what duct tape and glue and RTV is for. But what you're going to start doing is just looking. Start looking at areas where there's a solder joint. And the solder joints, each of these little dabs here, you see each of those little silver dots? That's a solder joint. So there are about 8,000 solder joints on this thing. Well, how do you find which one is bad? A lot of these components on here, they all have all kinds of different purposes, but I know that like these little guys and these two guys too as well, these are something like relays or a power module or something like that. Anytime you see these bigger items that are attached, you want to look at the opposite side. Look at where they are attached, and you need to get a magnifying glass to get in there, get a real close look up at these things. What I had found on this module, this little relay here, whatever that thing does, we don't know. But the solder joints, right down in here, they were bad. They were cracked. Inspect, you find, you touch it up with a soldering iron and a little bit of fresh solder. It takes about 10 seconds. You put it all back together and enjoy your sweet Swedish ride.
What we've got here is communication.
Check this out. Read. Yep. No codes. Didn't even have to clear the codes. Once I got it fixed, everything cleared on its own, which is awesome. I love it when they do that, actually. I think that's kind of cool. So there you go. Another case of a dang solder joint.